Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your courtesy, and thank you, Ms. Hageman and Ms. Hoyle, for being here and for your testimony. I appreciate you all coming before the Rules Committee. Ms. Hageman, I thought I want to perhaps spend a bit of time unpacking some of the conversation you just had with Mr. Norman. We both represent Western states, Rocky Mountain West, of course, from congressional neighbors, if you will. I represent northwestern Colorado, as you know, a long border with Wyoming. And I understand that you held a town hall pretty recently in Wyoming. I don't know if I...
10 of them.
What was that?
10.
10 of them.
Town halls.
So I am curious, so you've held a lot of them, way more than a lot of your colleagues on that side of the aisle, I will say, so I appreciate that. I've held 10 as well in my district, but I'm wondering, what are you hearing at those town halls? What do folks... I mean, just give us a sense of the flavor of what folks are concerned about in the state of Wyoming.
They're concerned about energy production, making sure that we get back to energy independence, which is part of the reason why I think it's so important to rename this to Gulf of America. In light of the amount of production, it accounts for about 15% of our oil and gas production in the country. So that's one of the big issues that you hear wherever you go, whether you're in town halls or meetings, is the importance of protecting our energy industry. I hear a lot about ensuring that we are implementing the agenda and the policies that Donald Trump ran on. Okay. This being one of them. I think people are,
so wait,
again,
can I just ask you a question on that? Let me just make sure because I understood the first part. You said energy dominance, protecting the energy industry is something you hear from folks that you represent in Wyoming, and I appreciate that. And then you said implementing President Trump's policies. So you're saying that there are people at your town halls who are demanding that you rename the Gulf of Mexico?
I think it's across the entire board.
Has that come up at any of your town halls?
Actually, it has.
It has?
Yes, and it's also come up in the meetings
that I've had.
The people
of Wyoming were demanding that you rename the Gulf of Mexico?
See, you use the word demand.
Oh, asking.
Very few people come to me and demand anything.
Well, I guess
what people say is that they want us to implement the agenda that Donald Trump ran on.
And that includes renaming the Gulf of Mexico?
Because it has to do with pride in America and what America stands
Representative,
for.
I would just simply say...
Well, you can argue with me as much as you'd like to.
It's not about an argument. I would love to attend one of the...
I would welcome you to attend one of my town halls.
I am asking you an honest question, and you're welcome to answer it any way you'd like. You're telling me in this committee that at one of your town halls...
I have said at my town halls and meetings...
Let me finish my question.
At town halls and my meetings...
You'll have an opportunity to answer.
Okay.
Let me finish my question. You've held 10 town halls across Wyoming.
Yes.
And at those town halls, Wyoming residents, constituents have said to you, I would like you to rename the Gulf of Mexico. Has that happened?
Yes. At the meetings that I have held, as I have said to you repeatedly now, I not only am holding town halls, I'm holding meetings with my constituents.
Sure.
The entire agenda that President Trump ran on, they've talked to me about no taxes on tips.
That's not, I'm not asking you about no taxes on tips.
They have talked to me about renaming the Gulf of America. They have talked to me about the oil and gas development that we have down there. They have talked about exporting energy out of the Gulf of America.
I'll reclaim my time because I think it's a shame.
And I would.
So you're calling me. I think what you're saying is you don't believe what I'm saying.
I'm saying that I would love to come to a town hall, and so I'll certainly look forward to. What we may do is we may just consider doing a town hall in Wyoming myself, so that I can get a better sense from Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated people of Wyoming as to what their priorities are. My sense is I'm not disagreeing with you that there are many folks in Wyoming who believe that the Congress ought to be pursuing policies that President Trump supports. What I am suggesting is that I find it a little bit unbelievable that of all the issues that the American people are dealing with, that my constituents are dealing with, that your constituents are dealing with, that at these town halls, renaming the Gulf of Mexico was a top priority. I suspect that the people of your state...
One of the things that you're ignoring...
talking, you'll have an opportunity to respond. I don't believe that the people in your state, nor the people in mine, would identify renaming the Gulf of Mexico as their top priority. And I find it absurd that we have to engage in this discussion to act as though this is anything but abnormal, that this is sort of just regular order, that yes, in the first 4 months of the 119th Congress, the Republican majority has decided that this is so important that we ought to take floor time to rename the Gulf of Mexico, notwithstanding all of the other policies that I suspect many of your supporters, many of the citizens that you represent are passionate about. I find that hard to believe. And apparently I'm the only one, or at least you and I disagree about this, but I suspect my colleagues maybe on this side of the aisle concur in that assessment. But in any event, I am happy to give you an opportunity to respond. And
so one of the things, Mr. Neguse, that you are ignoring is the fact that the state of Wyoming and my constituents in Wyoming have a very close connection to the Gulf of America because we are one of the largest energy producers in the nation. We are the largest coal producer. We're the eighth largest oil and gas producer. Our resources, our oil and gas and coal are actually exported out of the Gulf of America. So it is something that is at the forefront of the minds of the people in the state of Wyoming. I also want to point out one thing.
What does this bill do to help them?
I want to point out one other thing that you did, which is a very clever trick, which is that you asked me if I'd been asked any questions, and I told you that I had. And when you did your soliloquy there at the end, you accused me of being dishonest and disingenuous by then converting that to being the top priority. I didn't say that it was the top priority, but I did say that I was asked questions, and there has been discussions.
So let's have this semantics debate
not only
then.
In the meetings that I've held, but when I have met with people who actually have a direct connection to the Gulf of America. So I think what you're trying to imply is that Wyoming has no interest in the Gulf of America, when in fact the state of Wyoming, with our energy resources,
Ms. Hageman, have you testified in front of this? Okay, I've been generous with my time.
America.
Have you testified in front of this committee yet this year? Is this your first time testifying in front of this committee?
Probably this year, but not last year. No,
I'm asking you this year. I'm saying in the last 4 months, since the 119th Congress has started, this is your first time testifying, right?
I think so.
You're chairwoman of the Water, Fisheries, and Wildlife Subcommittee, are you not?
Yes.
And this is the first bill that you have decided to present to this committee on behalf of the state that you serve. So this notion, I'm saying to you, whether you or the Republican majority have picked this as a priority is besides the point. Clearly, this is what you all have decided to spend your time on in the opening months of the 119th Congress. Maybe that's what the people of, I guess, is what you're testifying to today, is that the people of Wyoming expect that from you and they support that. I can certainly tell you that in Colorado, of all of the issues that are important to the residents of my state, Gulf of America renaming does not crack the top 3, the top 10 of issues that my constituents care about. You clearly feel differently. That's your prerogative. I'll yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, for his time of questioning.
I'm now happy to turn to Vice Chair Murray for her opening statement.
Thank you very much. And let me start by congratulating you, Senator Collins, first hearing as chair. We've managed to do a lot of bipartisan work over the past few years, and I hope we can continue to build off of that record. And I really appreciate this important hearing on biomedical research. It is an issue with longstanding bipartisan support. We have worked together for many times over the years, along with our colleagues, to invest in advancing medical breakthroughs. And those investments have paid off in so many ways, not just billions in economic activity, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and a medical research enterprise that is the envy of the world. They've also paid off with genuine miracles, cures that were once impossible, treatments that were once unthinkable. These are investments that give patients hope for the future, that give them back a life derailed by a disease, that give people precious more time with their loved ones, which is why I am so deeply alarmed that President Trump has taken a wrecking ball to our biomedical research enterprise. He and Elon Musk have been tossing tomorrow's groundbreaking cures into a shredder. From day one, DOGE has been cutting critical research without rhyme or reason or any regard for who gets hurt. Trump has already axed 800 grants over $1 billion in research for HIV prevention, breast cancer, pregnancy, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and more. They've also blocked $2 billion in grant funding from going out to universities and research institutions across our country. And they slapped a $1 limit on NIH researchers' payment cards, meaning that our labs cannot get gloves or pipettes and vials. These are the basic things you need to do research. If Trump and Musk have their way, they are not just going to grind medical research to a halt, they will send it careening backwards. Because Trump apparently wants to slash $21 billion from NIH next year. That would be a 44% cut, the biggest cut in NIH history. He also wants to defy a bipartisan law this committee worked to pass so he can massively cut funding for basic costs that keeps our labs running. If Trump succeeds here, a lot of world-class research institutions like the Fred Hutch Cancer Center and the University of Washington in my state will face massive shortfalls. The fact that Trump and Musk are pushing such a painful policy really underscores how they don't know or don't care whether their policies actually hurt people. And if you needed any more evidence that there's no real strategy here, just consider the Women's Health Initiative. It was coordinated by the Fred Hutch Cancer Center in my home state of Washington. It has led to major advancements in our understanding of women's health issues, especially in older women. It has paved the way for a generation of researchers focused on women's health. That is something we never had before. And yet Trump was going to axe it, presumably because he thinks it's woke to care about women's health. Then hardly 24 hours later, he claims to have reversed course following a loud public outcry. Yet the Fred Hutch Cancer Research still has not heard from NIH directly on if that funding will actually be restored. Trump's 360 really goes to show you these cuts and firings are not about some big strategy, just chaos and extortion. We have seen Trump freeze billions of research dollars for purely political reasons, putting his own petty grievances ahead of curing cancer and saving lives. None of us should stand for that, not for a minute. And just as slashing NIH isn't about a strategy for our country, it's not about efficiency either. NIH has an incredibly high return on investment. While medical research accounts for less than 1% of the federal budget, NIH has contributed to over 99% of drugs approved by FDA in recent years. And while we're talking about government efficiency, let's not forget the FDA, which families trust to keep them safe. Because the NIH breakthrough won't do much good if FDA does not have the staff and resources they need to approve new drugs. But Trump cannot gut FDA, push out 4,000 workers, and expect to maintain that gold standard that keeps food and drugs safe and gives our nation a competitive edge. And NIH cuts are not just cutting off promising future research, but undermining studies we are right in the middle of right now. One NIH lab that analyzes blood samples for more than 200 trials, studying cancer treatments, organ transplants, and more, lost half its staff during Trump and Elon's layoffs. Right now, in this country, patients in clinical trials are praying for a breakthrough. They're seeing their best hope cut off by the richest people in the world. And worse than undermining any one study, Trump and Musk are also cutting the beating heart out of our medical research enterprise by pushing talented researchers out the door. Trump has pushed out nearly 5,000 people at NIH and counting. China is already trying to seize the moment and recruit some of the brightest talent, and the same for Europe. Instead of supporting new talent, Trump is slashing grants for our early career scientists. I heard about this firsthand a few weeks ago. I was out in my state speaking with researchers and students at WSU in Vancouver. Bright young people who want to do their medical research here are suddenly worried. Why start that PhD if their funding is going to get yanked away? Why study new vaccines if RFK Jr. is going to meddle in their work? Why come to the U.S. for promising research if Trump might just try to deport them for jaywalking? Make no mistake, the United States is the world leader in medical research, but creating that was not an accident, and maintaining it is not inevitable. It is a choice we make through our investments, one that is paid off on a scale that cannot be measured. How do you measure the miracle of eliminating a disease, of funding a cure, of developing a new vaccine? How do you measure giving someone the chance to become a parent or to see their grandkids? You can't. Which leads me to the question I hope we focus on today. Why on earth would we let Trump slash that all to ribbons? Why on earth would we give up on Alzheimer's research or heart disease or cancer? I will tell you, I am not giving up on patients. I am not giving up on cures. I suspect many others here feel the same. So I hope this discussion today helps us focus on that common ground, and that working together, we can push back on these devastating cuts and push forward the research that is so important to folks back home. Thank you.